Is there a big PlayStation game event coming very soon? Sony has responded to Xbox's huge purchase of Activision Blizzard. God of War is running in the last place you would expect. And were the rumors wrong about Hogwarts Legacy getting delayed yet again? Well, we're gonna find out in today's edition of PlayStation News. So before we do, make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications set to all. So the first thing we have to talk about is that Sony has officially responded to Microsoft buying Activision. They put out a statement this morning that says, "We expect Microsoft will abide by contractual agreements and continue to ensure Activision games are multi-platform." Now, to me, that sounds like a message speaking directly to the shareholders over at Sony, because the overall stock value of Sony right after this whole acquisition happened dropped 13%, which netted them a loss of like $20-something billion. Now, to us hardcore gamers, that might sound absolutely crazy, but it really makes sense. Call of Duty is pretty much the most mainstream game out there. It breaks so far out of the hardcore gaming circuit that it's not even funny. I would say it's in the same league as something like FIFA or Madden. It's like a game that normal people who have a PS4 or PS5 buy every year. They just do it religiously, they play it, they prestige, they play Warzone, they stick with that one game, and maybe they switch over to FIFA or like a sports game when they're bored of Call of Duty. So to have Microsoft pull the rug out from underneath Sony's feet and buy that IP is obviously an alarming thing to the shareholders of Sony, who are like, wait, are we losing the most popular game in the entire industry? So yeah, that's pretty damn crazy. What Phil Spencer said exactly is, "Had good calls this morning with leaders at Sony. I confirmed our intent to honor all existing agreements upon acquisition of Activision Blizzard and our desire to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. Sony is an important part of our industry and we value our relationship." Now, I gotta be real, this is pretty surprising to me. My gut reaction when Microsoft bought Activision, or at least when it was announced, is that there's no way they're going to keep Call of Duty exclusive after these contractual agreements that Sony already had with Activision expire. What I mean by that is Sony, just like they did in the PS4 generation, has deals with Activision to get stuff early, to get exclusive content on Call of Duty games, and I feel like that's not a deal you make game to game, because the PS5 for the most part is just going to stay the most popular console for at least the foreseeable future. So I'm sure whatever deal they made with Activision jumping from the PS4 to the PS5 was a better deal that benefited Sony for longer. People were arguing that Call of Duty is just too big to be exclusive, and honestly now it seems like they were right, but really if you look at what they did with Bethesda, I thought it was just Microsoft saying no, they aren't too big to keep exclusive, because stuff like The Elder Scrolls 6 is not going to be on PlayStation. It's pretty much guaranteed at this point. Stuff like Starfield, the next big RPG from Bethesda Game Studios, not going to be on PlayStation. Pretty much guaranteed at this point. But the fact that in the future you'll be able to subscribe to Game Pass and get Call of Duty day one, honestly, I feel like that's going to get a lot of people to jump ship on PlayStation and at least pick up an Xbox Series S. If that console can run the game at like 1440p, 60 frames per second going forward, and you don't have to pay $70 for it out the door, that seems like a pretty good deal to me. But as someone who's not a huge Call of Duty fan and has sort of seen the downward trajectory of that series as time has gone on, this doesn't really bother me all that much. I mean, I do have an Xbox, I have a gaming PC, so if I really wanted to play Call of Duty, the option is still there and it'll be on Game Pass, which is fine. But Xbox doesn't have God of War, Xbox doesn't have Horizon Forbidden West, Xbox doesn't have the Uncharted series, they don't have The Last of Us, they don't have Ghost of Tsushima, they don't have any of these huge IP that really just blow the door open every time they're released, because Sony has done such a good job over the years releasing games that are high quality and actually work at launch, and for the most part don't have any microtransactions. As good as Halo has gotten since Halo 5 really is doing some shady stuff with it. They just improved the store, but for the first few months that game was out, the store in Halo Infinite was absolutely bad. It was just terrible how much stuff costs. The way that you were able to preview stuff wasn't really good enough. It was not right for a first party game. The amount of microtransactions in Halo Infinite at launch were insane. The Tenrai event, they eventually fixed it, but when they launched it, you had to play 5 weeks of content, like get these challenges randomly to show up in your challenge list, and then you had to do 7 of them. You could only do 7 at a time. You'd get a portion of the XP battle pass, but the battle pass also had like XP boosters in there. It was a complete mess. And then when you look at the technical side of things, Halo Infinite does not run at a locked 4K 60 frames per second, not by a long shot. That game's dynamic resolution is working overtime. I played it on Xbox, I played it on PC. It is extremely hard to lock a first-person shooter at 60 frames per second. And then the content and the story, it's clear that Halo Infinite was not ready to be shipped, and they got it out the door because they had to. So yeah, Microsoft can continue to buy these studios left and right, but the one thing they're still missing is a full-on AAA exclusive that rivals what Sony has. I know Psychonauts 2 did pretty well last year, but no, it does not compare to something like Ghost of Tsushima, and I don't feel like that's a crazy statement at all. And the other thing to consider here is that across the board, Activision is a mess right now. So just at Activision, they have every studio they have working on Call of Duty. Stuff like Vicarious Visions. They knocked it out of the park with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake. How are they rewarded? They get to work on the new Diablo. Like, what's going on there? The people who worked on the Crash Insane trilogy and Crash 4, It's About Time, they're rewarded by being absorbed to work on Call of Duty. They don't even get to make Crash 5. Move over to Blizzard and things are even worse. Diablo 4 just got delayed. Diablo Immortal, we don't even have to talk about when that was announced for mobile phones because they just wanted to make money in China. I'm going to repeat this. There is literally no reason to buy Overwatch 2. All of the multiplayer improvements that come along with Overwatch 2 are going to be an upgrade that might be free for Overwatch 1. The only reason you're buying that is to get their version of a campaign for Overwatch, which honestly does not look that good. Like, I don't know how Activision didn't learn anything from Bungie and how they treated them with Destiny when Bungie had to put out multiple expansions a year that got terrible reviews because it's not possible to make that much content in that little time. And then they wanted number sequels, so they made them release Destiny 2, which now Destiny 2 is just the platform that Bungie wanted to make, and the game's bigger than it's ever been. So how do they counter that? How do they learn? They don't learn. They make Overwatch 2 for no reason because they can make money quicker that way by getting people excited for a new boxed release. World of Warcraft, which is the biggest and really only MMO of consequence for the longest time, is bleeding players at an insane rate to go to Final Fantasy 14, which is apparently like the best MMO ever made. People absolutely love that game. And then with StarCraft 2 is huge. People were playing it for years, but it's obvious that people really want a new release, and there's apparently nothing going on that front. So not only is Microsoft taking on a massive corporation that's in a huge mess right now, legally and just with their game development as a whole, they can't actually start fixing any of these problems until 2023 at the earliest. So yeah, for the time being, Activision's not that great of a get. Like, I'm sorry. Maybe in a few years, they're going to have a lot of great games coming out that are really just making people excited to pick them up. But yeah, speaking of smart decisions, we got to talk about Sony porting their games to PC. I am still over the moon about this God of War PC port. I have never played a PC port this good. You can run it at better than PS5 settings on like a mid to high range PC. I play on a 3080 laptop and I can run this game basically locked at 60 frames per second in 4K with DLSS, and DLSS is just a better upscaler than what the PS5 uses, which is checkerboarding. So on PS5, you're running it at around 1440p upscaled to 4K. You get some blurry edges. On the PC, you get very smooth edges with DLSS. Now, it's not like perfect. It does have a few issues when you use DLSS, but the point is Sony is really learning how to port their games to PC, and that's good because the Steam Deck is coming, and I'm like hoping so deeply that could eventually become the Vita 2, right? If Sony really learns and listens, they'll start having trophy integration on these PC releases. They'll start releasing them around the same time or at least closer to the PS5 releases. They'll have cross save. They'll make these supplementary second purchases that you can make if you have a Steam Deck and a PS5. And that's really the best of both worlds for them because they have had so much trouble getting handhelds to catch on, and they're scared to do it the right way, which is to not have proprietary memory cards and to have removable batteries and to have bigger SSDs installed on the devices. Like, they do all this weird stuff, and they don't really support the devices with first-party stuff unless it catches on right at the beginning, so just let Valve do all the work for you. We just had a tweet from Shuhei Yoshida showing him playing God of War on the Steam Deck, and yeah, that's just like Vita 2 territory at that point. Now, we don't know how well it runs. I would assume you're only going to pull about 30 frames per second on that. But again, it's a 720p screen, so I feel like 30 frames per second at 720p, even if you have to run it at around original settings or medium settings, that is, that's still going to look really good and be an awesome handheld experience. And the coolest thing here is that Sony could partner with Valve because it's happened before. I know the orange box on PS3 was a complete mess, but that's because EA ported it and they did a really terrible job. The best thing is Valve and Sony partnered like together without EA's involvement, and it came out great. Portal 2 back in the day, if you bought it on PS3, you could link your PlayStation Network account to your Steam account and get a free copy of Portal 2 on PC. Now, they didn't do that with any game after that because Valve hasn't released a game since Portal 2 other than Dota 2 and Half-Life Alyx, neither of which are on PlayStation. But I guarantee you, if they had released a game on PlayStation, it probably would have had a similar sort of thing installed. And we know Valve has issues with Microsoft. They're always talking about how Windows being the main OS for PC gaming is a problem. That's why the Steam Deck runs Valve OS 3.0. It's a custom operating system. Now, of course, you can install Windows on it, but they're figuring out ways to get around that. You can play most of the games on Steam by emulating the Windows versions of them on the Valve custom OS. So like Sony, seeing what Xbox is doing with Activision, all they have to do is go knock on Valve's door and say, want to partner up for something official on the Steam Deck? Like, we can have our games be Steam Deck compatible at launch, and Xbox is never going to do that. They're going to try and strong arm Game Pass onto Valve, and Valve is going to say, we literally don't need you. We're partnered up with PlayStation. Obviously, this is all pie in the sky stuff. It is really cool seeing God of War running on the Steam Deck, but I'm not surprised since the port is so perfect. What I really want to see is Horizon Zero Dawn running on the Steam Deck, because that port, my God, it is still just such a mess. Even if you run it at original settings, it runs good. You can get 60 frames per second out of it, but the game itself was not built to run at 60. It just doesn't really work right. I mean, even on PS5, it has very similar issues. So I'd like to see that running on a handheld, because that's kind of the perfect game for it. And now we have an update on Hogwarts Legacy, because a couple of videos back, we talked about how it might be delayed into 2023. That was actually a scoop from my friends Dustin and Colin over at the Sacred Symbols podcast, but now it seems like that rumor was not exactly true, and the game still could be on track to come out in 2022. Now, the story here is that pretty soon after they talked about that possible delay and the game possibly being in trouble, the Wizarding World main homepage website updated, and there was a post about 2022 being the year that Hogwarts Legacy is set to be released. Now, honestly, I'm not putting a lot of stock in this website having that, because until it's delayed, it's not delayed, right? They're going to keep hammering home that yes, it is coming out in 2022 until the day where we wake up and there's a news announcement that yep, we have to delay the game into 2023. And honestly, if they do have to delay it, I'm completely fine with that. Delay the game all you need to. Just make sure it's a good game. Learn from Square Enix's mistakes. They are the biggest problem with this type of stuff right now. When you look at this Hogwarts Legacy game and you look at the reunion special of the movie cast that happened on HBO Max, something's got to be brewing with this mainline Harry Potter series. Like, we know Fantastic Beasts, the new one with Mads Mikkelsen, is coming out soon. It looks pretty good. I like that franchise, but it's nowhere near as big or as high quality as the mainline Harry Potter movie series. I feel like it is finally time for them to really blow the doors open and make Harry Potter a huge franchise again. And I feel like starting out with a huge game that gets people to make their own character and live through a Hogwarts story is the best way to do it. So is the game coming out in 2022? I don't know. I'm skeptical. I feel like it's probably not coming out in 2022. Every time they talk about this kind of stuff on Sacred Symbols, there's usually at least a little bit of truth there. And this is honestly so cut and dry and not that big of a deal that really, if they've heard it's in trouble, it's probably in trouble. The fact of the matter is, Warner Brothers, take your time, get the game right. We'll play it in 2023 if that's the case. So a couple videos back, we talked about a tweet from this big leaker, Tom Henderson, where he said that we have a big state of play type event to look forward to in the coming months, like a lot sooner than we think it's going to happen. That still looks like it's going to happen. He honestly has a pretty good track record with his leaks, so I would put a lot of stock into it actually happening in the next few weeks, which is great. But he's also talked about this new event that's going to happen for media to go check out Gran Turismo 7, because that's the next big exclusive for the PlayStation 5 after Horizon Forbidden West. Now, I've talked about it here on the channel before. I'm not like the biggest Gran Turismo fan. I play them all. I remember back when I got my PS3, you could play Gran Turismo 5 Prologue for free. Like, if you downloaded it in a certain time period, it was like a free prologue type of demo for Gran Turismo 5, and then you could like buy it on disc after the fact later. It was a really weird way to release that, but we used to play, my friends and I, the like time trial mode over and over again, trying to beat each other's scores, because when the PS3 came out, there just weren't a ton of games on it, and it was pretty fun. And then I tried a couple more Gran Turismo games as time went on. This one, the graphics just looked so good in that reveal trailer that I want to check it out. It seems like they really buckled down and refined what people want from Gran Turismo after Sport came out, and it didn't really catch on. fun. I'm sure it sold really well, but I know a lot of people who play Gran Turismo, and they've all said that's not necessarily their favorite game in the series. So to know we're getting a full-on numbered sequel to Gran Turismo 6 now, that's awesome, and I'm actually excited to check it out. But the most important thing about this media event finally happening is we can look at that website we talked about, I think honestly at this point almost a year ago. If you guys don't remember, there was a website that had the Gran Turismo 7 beta on it, and you could literally get to a point where you'd log in with your PSN and it would give you a code to enter into the PlayStation Store, and that would let you download the early beta for Gran Turismo 7. Now, if you actually went all the way through this process, the number it would give you was like 0000000, tons of zeros. It didn't actually work, but the site has been set up for so long, ready to go, that I feel like it's finally time to activate it, right? If they got media flying out, finally playing the game, it's playable, it's coming out very soon. That's a good time to release at least a demo for people to check out to really get excited, because there's a short gap between Horizon Forbidden West and Gran Turismo 7. You gotta like restart a hype cycle right after a big game releases. I'm assuming Horizon Forbidden West is good. It's kind of like that gap that they had between Forza Horizon 5 and the Halo Infinite surprise multiplayer release, but reversed. I don't know how much it's going to affect either game. It's just kind of interesting. So yeah, if we get anything out of this media event next week, I'll definitely talk about it here on the channel. But that's all the PlayStation news I have for you today. So make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below. And remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.